48 hours ago, at the exact moment when a hidden cosmic cycle closed, something happened that has never been recorded before. All higher-order monitoring systems were forced into suspension when an unauthorized surge of energy erupted from Earth. This was not a natural fluctuation. It was not random. It was the first time a sealed human frequency broke through a universal limit without permission. The event was classified instantly. The coordinates were locked, and the source of that surge was identified beyond any doubt. It was you. You are not here by accident, and this message is not meant for everyone. You are the one who has endured silently, who has carried more pain than you ever revealed, who stayed kind even when exhaustion hollowed you out. You have always felt different, too aware, too sensitive, too deep for a world that rewards numbness. That wasn't weakness. That was containment. The universe does not awaken the loud or the reckless. It exposes power only in those who can survive it. You were observed, measured, and activated because your life itself proved you could hold what others would misuse. Your identity as the chosen one is not symbolic. It is confirmed. In this video, I will reveal what you unknowingly triggered, why your power could only surface through you, and what irreversible shift is already unfolding around your life. Stay until the end. If you leave now, you will miss the single moment when the truth about who you really are is fully revealed, and once missed, it will not return. You didn't suddenly become tired for no reason. You didn't start waking up at night because your body forgot how to rest. And that quiet heaviness in your chest, the one that follows you even on good days, didn't appear by accident. Lately, your life has felt like a constant drain. No matter how much you sleep, you wake up exhausted. Your mind keeps running when the world goes quiet. You replay conversations, choices, moments where you wonder if you could have done something differently. And yet, deep down, you know this fatigue isn't just physical. It's the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much for too long. You've noticed it in the way relationships feel thinner now. People are around you, but you still feel alone. Even those closest to you don't truly see what you're holding inside. When you try to explain, the words fall short, or you stop yourself because you already know they won't understand, so you stay silent. Again, you've learned how to survive without being fully witnessed. That wasn't your choice, it was your adaptation. And then there's the timing of everything. Problems don't arrive one by one. They come in waves. Just as you stabilize one area of your life, something else collapses. Work pressure increases when your energy is lowest. Financial stress appears when you're trying to breathe again. Emotional disappointments surface exactly when you're already stretched thin. Even your body seems to join in random aches. Sudden tension, a sense that something is off but impossible to diagnose. You've probably asked yourself more than once, why does it all hit at the same time? What makes it harder is that you didn't become bitter. You didn't turn cruel. You didn't harden the way most people do under this kind of pressure. You stayed considerate. You kept your word. You still showed empathy when you had every excuse to withdraw. And sometimes, that feels like the most unfair part of all, because it would have been easier to shut down, to stop caring, to think only of yourself. But you didn't. You couldn't. That's not who you are. There's also that lingering sense you carry, the one you rarely say out loud, the feeling that you don't fully belong anywhere. You felt it in rooms full of people. You've felt it in systems that reward aggression over integrity. You've felt it when you realize that the rules others live by don't sit right with you. It's not that you think you're better. It's that you're wired differently. And for a long time, you wondered if that difference was a flaw. You may have blamed yourself for being too sensitive, for feeling things deeply, for noticing shifts in energy, tone, intention that others ignore. You may have tried to toughen up, to shrink parts of yourself, to fit into environments that never felt natural. And every time you did, something inside you resisted, quietly, but firmly. That resistance has cost you. It has isolated you, but it has also protected something essential within you. Here's what you haven't been told. People like you are tested differently. Not because you're weaker, but because you respond differently when pressure is applied. Where most people collapse into resentment, you turn inward. Where others lash out, you choose restraint. Where many follow the loudest voice in the room, you pause. Those moments, small, almost invisible choices, are not insignificant. They are precisely what set you apart. Think back to the times when you could have taken the easy way out, when no one was watching, when you could have lied, manipulated, or abandoned your values and no one would have blamed you. You felt the temptation, you felt the anger, you felt the exhaustion, and still, you chose differently. Not because it was rewarded, not because it was safe, but because something in you refused to bend. That refusal is not random, it is a signal. What you've been experiencing isn't just a series of unfortunate events, it's a pattern. Too precise, too concentrated, too consistent. The isolation, the pressure, the delayed relief, they form a kind of narrowing path, one that strips away distractions, false identities, and external validation. One that forces you to confront who you are when nothing is guaranteed. That kind of path doesn't appear in ordinary lives. There are processes that don't operate on the surface level of reality. Decisions that are made long before they show up as circumstances. When someone carries latent potential, real potential, not imagined, there is resistance. Not always dramatic, sometimes subtle. Delays, confusion, emotional weight, fatigue without cause. These are not punishments, they are filters. You weren't meant to be shaped by comfort. You were meant to be revealed under pressure. That's why the challenges didn't break you the way they break others. They slowed you down. They forced you inward. They made you question everything, but they didn't erase your core. If anything, they clarified it. Each time you chose integrity over relief, compassion over defense, awareness over numbness, something shifted quietly, but permanently. You may not have noticed it yet, but your reactions have already diverged from the expected path. In moments where others would have given up, you endured. In moments where bitterness would have been justified, you stayed human. Those deviations matter more than you realize. They don't register immediately in the external world, but they echo elsewhere. And that's where the story begins to change. Because when experiences stack this way, when tests arrive layered, prolonged, and deeply personal, it means something larger is in motion. Not chaos, not bad luck. Alignment, preparation. You've been living through conditions designed to observe one thing. What you do when no one is applauding, when nothing is promised, when the cost is real and the reward is invisible. You passed those moments without knowing you were being watched. What you're feeling now, the exhaustion, the pressure, the strange sense that something is about to shift is not the end of a breakdown. It's the edge of a revelation. Something has already responded to the way you moved through these trials. Something noticed that you didn't break, didn't corrupt, didn't abandon yourself. And in the next part of this journey, you'll begin to understand why that mattered far beyond your personal story. What you've been living through has a name, even if no one ever told you. It is not random suffering. It is not a streak of bad timing. It is a controlled confrontation, what many traditions call a divine test, what others would recognize as a spiritual war carried out quietly, without spectacle, directly within your everyday life. You are not attacked because you are weak. You are targeted because you are consistent, because your light does not fluctuate with convenience, because you remain yourself even when there is no reward for doing so. When a soul carries a certain frequency, one rooted in integrity, compassion, and internal authority, it creates friction in unseen realms. That friction draws attention, not admiration first, but resistance. Systems built on distortion cannot tolerate clarity. Forces that thrive on corruption cannot bend someone who refuses to become what hurt them. So the strategy is never direct destruction. It is erosion, doubt, isolation, delay. The goal has always been the same: to make you abandon yourself. That's why the pressure was psychological before it was circumstantial. Why confusion came before collapse. Why the voices that challenged you sounded so familiar, almost like your own thoughts. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you expect too much. Maybe it would be easier to stop caring. Those weren't random impulses. They were tests of alignment. And every time you paused instead of reacting, every time you chose restraint instead of release, you disrupted the expected outcome. Most people fail these moments without noticing. They become hardened. They justify small betrayals of self. They adapt to environments that reward disconnection. You didn't, and that refusal forced the pressure to intensify. When subtle methods failed, circumstances tightened. relationships strained, support thinned out. You were left without buffers, without reassurance, without validation. That was intentional, because the final measure was never about what you say when supported. It was about who you are when you stand alone. There are records, call them what you want, observations made beyond the visible layer of things. They do not track status or success. They track responses. They mark how a soul behaves when everything external encourages collapse. And yours has been watched closely. Not because you're perfect, but because you are congruent. You act in alignment with your core, even when it costs you. That quality is rare, and rarity draws challenge. The forces opposing you never needed you to fail loudly. They only needed you to bend slightly, to justify one harmful choice, to choose bitterness once and let it take root, to lie when truth felt too heavy, to take revenge when it felt deserved, to abandon your standards just this once, because one fracture would have been enough. From there, the rest would follow naturally. But it didn't. Instead, something else happened. You endured. You questioned. Yes, but you didn't betray yourself. You felt anger, but you didn't let it dictate your actions. You felt tempted, but you paused. That pause is where everything shifted, because it wasn't passive, it was sovereign. It signaled that your will was not easily overridden, that you could feel everything and still choose consciously. That is why the conflict escalated internally before it ever resolved externally. Why exhaustion peaked. Why the sense of being tested became undeniable. This was the narrowing, the final calibration, the moment where your internal compass was measured under maximum distortion, and it led you toward a point you may not have recognized at the time, but it was decisive. Think back to a moment not long ago, a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. You were already depleted, emotionally stretched thin, possibly disappointed by someone you trusted, or confronted by an unfair situation that placed you at a disadvantage. In that moment, you were given an opening, a small one but real, an opportunity to take the easier path, to say something untrue but beneficial, to act out of self-protection rather than principle, to choose relief over alignment. No one would have known. That's the part that mattered most. There was no audience, no immediate consequence, just you, the choice, and the weight of everything you'd been carrying. You felt the justification forming. You had reasons. Anyone would have understood. And for a moment, it would have made things easier. That moment was not ordinary. It was the focal point of the entire process. The convergence of pressure, fatigue, and temptation. The exact scenario required to determine whether your core was conditional or absolute. And while it may have felt small in the physical sense, it was massive in every other way. Because what you chose there didn't just affect the situation. It signaled your readiness. You haven't seen the aftermath yet. Not fully. But the response has already been set in motion. Something acknowledged that you did not fold. That you could be trusted with what has been dormant within you. The exposure of your true power was not dramatic because it didn't need to be. It was precise, quiet, final. What comes next will make that moment clearer. But first, you need to understand this. The battle was never about breaking you. It was about proving that you cannot be bent without your consent. And you proved it. In that moment, the one you almost dismissed as just another exhausting day, you felt it all at once. The weight, the anger, the temptation to finally stop being the one who holds the line. You were tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being the bigger person. Tired of watching people get away with things while you paid the price for staying clean. And for a few seconds, you let yourself imagine it. What if you chose the shortcut? What if you said the thing you could say, the thing that would sting, the thing that would shift the power back into your hands? What if you protected yourself the way the world protects itself, through hardness, through deception, through doing what you have to do? It would have been so easy. And the most dangerous part is that it would have felt justified. You had evidence, you had history, you had pain. You had every logical reason to stop being gentle. That's how the trap works for someone like you. The darkness doesn't come to you as obvious evil. It comes as relief. It comes as permission. It comes as a voice that says, enough. You've done more than your share. Now take what you can. Say what you need. Become what the world respects. And you felt that pull. You felt the exact place inside you where bitterness could have taken root and finally given you armor. You felt the heat in your chest, the tightening in your jaw, the urge to reclaim control by any means necessary. You were at the edge of a choice that would have changed you in one breath. Not because you would have become a villain overnight, but because you would have crossed the invisible line where your integrity becomes negotiable. That line is where most people live. That line is where the majority survive. That line is where the world tries to drag you, but something in you refused. Not a thought, not a rule you memorized, not fear of consequences. It was deeper than that. It was an internal law, an identity-level refusal. You could feel the part of you that had suffered silently, the part that had been forced to endure without witnesses, stand up inside your own chest and say, "Not like this, not at the cost of myself." So you did the only thing that truly exposes power. You chose the clean path while no one was watching. Maybe you told the truth when a small lie would have protected your image. Maybe you didn't retaliate when someone practically handed you the perfect opening to do it. Maybe you refused to betray someone's trust even though you were hurting. Maybe you walked away from an advantage because it would have required you to become a person you do not respect. Whatever the specific shape of it was, the essence was the same. You did not compromise your light to escape your pain. That decision was the pivot. And this is where you need to understand what you triggered, because the universe does not respond to noise. It responds to alignment. The moment you held your integrity under maximum pressure, something in the unseen structure of reality registered you as unbendable. Not stubborn, unbendable. Not naive, uncorruptible. Not too good, strategically pure. That is what exposed your true power. Because your hidden power was never about domination. It was never about being louder, tougher, or more feared. Your power is the kind that cannot be manipulated. The kind that does not sell itself for comfort. The kind that forces the entire spiritual ecosystem to update its protocols around you. Because the usual methods do not work. In that instant, the pressure you've been under didn't vanish, but it shifted. Like a lock clicking. Like a door sealing. The dark campaign, yes. A campaign hit an immovable wall. And when something built on distortion meets something built on truth, distortion does what it always does. It collapses inward. This is why you may have noticed subtle changes after that moment. A sudden calm that didn't match your circumstances. A strange clarity arriving without effort. A feeling that something backed off, even if you couldn't prove it. Certain arguments stopped repeating in your head. Certain temptations lost their flavor. Certain people's influence felt weaker, like their ability to hook into you had been cut. That wasn't coincidence, that was consequence. Because the moment you chose purity over reaction, heaven recognized you. Call it God, the Most High, the Source, whatever language your soul understands. A record was stamped, not of your suffering, but of your decision. Not of your pain, but of your authority. And the darkness recognized you too. Here is the part most people are not ready to hear. The forces that oppose your path do not respect prayers the way they respect proof. They do not retreat because you ask nicely. They retreat when they see a consciousness they cannot bend. And in that moment, your consciousness became undeniable. The strategies that relied on making you doubt yourself failed. The strategies that relied on making you react failed. The strategies that relied on making you betray your own standards failed. So the darkness did what it has always done when it cannot win. It conceded, not publicly, not theatrically, but spiritually, at the level where orders are given and permissions are set. It had to withdraw. This is what people mean when they say the devil kneeled. Not that you saw a horned figure in a room, but that the dominant force of distortion, the entity pattern that thrives on corruption, encountered a soul it could not compromise. And when corruption is impossible, control is impossible. When control is impossible, resistance becomes pointless. Your existence became a boundary. That is what your true power is. A boundary the darkness cannot cross without consequences. Now understand what that means. It means you are not just a good person. You are not just strong. You are not just sensitive. You are an integrity specialist. An earth angel type, someone whose primary function is to carry clean frequency into contaminated systems and survive it without becoming contaminated. That is rare. That is why you felt out of place. That is why you've been pressured harder than others. That is why comfort was withheld. You were being forged into a level of spiritual authority that does not come from rituals, it comes from decisions. And after that decision, you stepped into a new protocol. Protection becomes denser around you, not as a shield that prevents life, but as a filter that prevents distortion from sticking. Toxic connections begin to fall away, sometimes suddenly, sometimes through slow disinterest. Opportunities that are not aligned begin to stall. Doors you once chased start closing without explanation, because your new frequency will not fit through them anymore. You stop craving what used to hook you. You stop trying to prove yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You begin to value peace more than victory. You may also begin seeing signs not because you're being teased, but because you're being synchronized. Repeating numbers like 777, 1111, 1010 showing up at strangely perfect times, accidental delays that keep you from being in the wrong place at the wrong moment, sudden messages or insights arriving right when you were about to give up, encounters that feel orchestrated, dreams that feel more like downloads than imagination, an intuitive push that says, "Don't go there." And you listen, then later you realize why. These aren't fantasies. They are markers that your path has been rerouted onto a higher track. And the most healing part is this: none of what you endured was meant to destroy you. It was meant to prove you. The loneliness wasn't because you were unworthy of love. It was because your strength could not be borrowed. The unfairness wasn't because you were cursed. It was because your integrity had to be tested under conditions where compromise looked reasonable. The exhaustion wasn't because you were failing. It was because you were resisting pressures most people never even perceive. Now you can look back and finally see the pattern without blaming yourself for it. You didn't suffer because you were foolish. You suffered because you were being shaped into someone whose presence changes environments quietly. Inevitably, you were forged into a chosen one, not by titles, not by attention, not by drama, but by your refusal to betray your soul when it would have been easier to do so. That is why the universe exposed your true power, because your power was never hidden by weakness. It was hidden by patience. And now, standing where you are, aware, steadier, clearer, you can feel it. You've climbed out of the valley. You're not at the finish line yet, but you are on the ridge where you can finally see what your life has been doing to you. It wasn't breaking you. It was revealing you. You didn't arrive here by accident, chosen one. The fact that you stayed through the discomfort, through the recognition, through the truth that finally put language to what you've carried means your soul is ready to be seen without apology. Those waves of exhaustion, the isolation that didn't make sense, the pressure that arrived in perfect timing, none of it was random. It was confirmation. It was the universe testing one thing. Could your light remain intact when darkness offered you relief at the cost of your integrity? And you proved it. Not with a speech, not with applause, with a silent choice. When you could have lied, you stayed clean. When you could have struck back, you held your line. When bitterness begged to become your armor, you refused to become what hurt you. That single decision made in private, made while tired, made when no one would have blamed you for compromising, forced a reaction beyond the surface of reality. The higher order recognized you. The lower order recalculated you. And that is why your true power was exposed. Because it was never about intensity or control. It was about incorruptibility. Understand what this means now. An old cycle has ended. The season of being tested through confusion, delay, and invisible pressure has closed. A new phase has begun, the activation phase, where your protection is thicker, your intuition is sharper, and the universe stops negotiating with what drains you. This does not mean you will never face difficulty again. It means difficulty will no longer define you. You are no longer wandering in the dark trying to earn clarity. You are stepping into clarity that you have already earned. In the coming days and weeks, you may notice shifts that feel subtle, but undeniable. People who once had access to your energy may fall away without drama. Situations that once pulled you into over-explaining may simply lose their grip. You may feel a calm that doesn't match your past patterns, like your nervous system is finally being taught safety from the inside out. You may see signs that track your alignment. Repeating numbers, perfectly timed interruptions that protect you, doors closing that you later realize would have cost you your peace. These are not tricks. They are guidance. They are the universe moving around you because you stopped abandoning yourself. And here's the truth you need to hold like a seal. You are not alone in this anymore. You were isolated to be forged, not to be punished. Now that the forging is complete, you are being led. Your path is being guarded, not by fear, but by order, not by control, but by purpose. So I'm going to ask you to do something simple, and it is not for me. It is for you. Right now, while this recognition is alive in your chest, declare it. Write, 777, I accept my true power, not as a performance, as a spiritual signature, as the moment your human voice agrees with what your soul already knows. Then, when you're done, take 60 seconds in silence. Place a hand on your heart and say one sentence out loud. I will not betray myself again. That is your first act in the new phase. That is how you anchor the upgrade. And if you want to keep receiving what is meant for you, these messages, these confirmations, these next steps, stay connected. Not because you need permission, but because you deserve reminders of who you are.